Breaking it down in layman's terms, today we've got a great topic and a great guest. Hiring sales talent, getting the right sales talent for the right clients, getting the right candidates, all that and more. And when it comes to executive search, I've got one of the top tier companies out there, a nationwide executive search firm that specializes in delivering exceptional sales talent. I've got the founder of the Sales Talent Group, John O'Brien. Welcome.
Hey, Doug, good to see you, buddy. Appreciate you having me on the show today. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad to have you on. We've known each other for a decade and some change, and we actually met visually online with my visual CV, and we're going to talk a little bit about video later on. But John, you run a top tier executive firm, not a staffing company, but getting those top sales professionals in those right positions. You're a man of process.
Yeah.
And a lot's changed over the last year with the pandemic and things of getting the right candidates. Can you comment on a couple key takeaways from that?
Well, I think just from the pandemic in general, a lot of things have changed, right? We've heard the term about the Great Resignation, and I don't know if it's so much that anymore as much as it is the opportunity for individuals to make change in their careers. And certainly the pandemic's allowed a lot of people to reflect, do a lot of self-reflection on what's most important to them. And so I think we're seeing a lot of change as a result of that, because the reality is right now for us, this is the most difficult time that we have ever had in the 24 years of being in business of getting AA sales player talent to listen to us and to pay attention. So we got to be really good at what we do in order to get the top A players to get them in the boat, as we like to say, to just have some conversation. So it's a difficult time, and hence, obviously a difficult time for our clients. And so we're trying to do a lot of things to help and shake things up a bit and help them out.
Well, helping your clients out is what you do. You source the right talent for your clients, and you've got a process that's in place. In fact, I just want to take from your website briefly and highlight the process. And I encourage everybody out there that's watching this video, head over to Sales Talent Group's website. There's a lot of great content and resources, and we'll have those links provided in the video. But when you talk about the client search process, you've got 8 steps. And I wrote this down so I don't misstep on this, because you want to avoid a mishire, obviously, right, John?
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. It's costly.
Exactly. And the first thing is you want to have an agreement on expectations. You have a discovery process. You're sourcing top tier sales professionals. You're screening those professionals. You submit to the client. You help coordinate the interview. Then the offer comes in, onboarding follow-up. Hey, that sounds easy enough. 8 simple steps. I know it's a lot more involved in that process. Yeah. What separates the Sales Talent Group from Joe Acme recruiting company or executive search firm?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Doug. I think that, one of the biggest differentiators at a higher level is that we focus simply on sales and sales leadership. That's all we do, primarily at the enterprise level. On the sales side, so base salaries of 100 to 200K, double it at plan kind of folks, and the leadership folks, it's 250 to 350, double it at plan kind of folks. And so at the front end, it's really important for us to get everything aligned, right? From an agreement perspective and from our discovery process, we do what we call our Navigator Call. And that, I think, really separates us from a lot of competition that's out there, honestly, because we've got our level of expertise of what we do in the business. My team is made up of all sales professionals. They get it. They've got 7 to 10 years experience of doing nothing but executive search. We've placed well over 1,100 people in the last 23 years. So we've got a lot of lessons learned, good and bad, along the way. But our Navigator process really helps shape out on the front end, what the search is all about, from the product and the company, the hiring team, the hiring process, and then as well the position in it of itself. And so it's about a 90-minute conversation. What we hear from our clients is that a lot of search firms don't do that, or don't do it as well as we do it, especially as it relates to sales. Because the step 3 part of the process is the part that is most difficult right now, and I think is one of the big differentiators for us. We're a direct sourcing methodology kind of approach. We don't wait for the post and pray, wait for the phones to ring, that kind of thing. We've got to be out actively and aggressively going after these candidates. And in today's market, again, Doug, I've never seen anything like it in 23 years. It is, it takes us 3 times the effort that it typically takes us on the front end to get to these sourcing, I'm sorry, to get to these top A-player candidates. It's a lot of time and effort, buddy. And so hence it's just making the search process a lot more difficult for us. We can still get the result, just takes a little longer and it's a little more difficult to do.
Well, the one thing about that process, and I listed those 8 steps, but there's a couple things that you showed how you differentiate against the recruiting competition. Yeah. I love the fact that you said, I hire my staff, my recruiters, they're all sales professionals. You are targeted in the sales profession. You hire salespeople on your team. It's not like I get a recruiter that calls me on the phone and they just came out of college and they're just trying to source a candidate for a client, but they don't have the sales, I won't say sales pedigree, chops, Acme, whatever. But that's a major difference maker. You've got that. And I know that obviously you've been in this industry for quite some time. Yeah. And you go really hard in the paint when it comes to sales recruiting. That is your specialty.
Yeah. And any HR professional that you talk to will tell you that hiring salespeople is very different than hiring other parts of the company. And so again, we talk about it in terms of, I like to call it our $1 million deal. And the $1 million deal is simply when we want the company to view the recruiting process as a sales process. And so just like they would, look at $1 million deal of software or hardware, or whatever it is that they're selling, $1 million deal is a pretty big deal. And typically it's a complex solution that has to be applied to it to get the deal done. We encourage our clients to change their mindset right now that they've got to be thinking about the recruiting process just like a sales process. And in doing so, it'll change their whole mind and flip things around. That in a candidate-driven market, the actually hiring managers have to be on the offense. They've got to be selling. They've got to be putting their best foot forward. And if they don't, they're going to get knocked out of the market real quick. The process, especially getting A players, getting them to make change is not easy. So you better be able and be ready to put your best foot forward.
Well, putting your best foot forward, but having that process. I mean, you're definitely a team on the mission. It looks like you got a process in place behind you in this video we're doing, and obviously you go hard in the paint. You've got your playbook out there. A players, you've used that phrase a few times, getting that top tier talent. Yeah. And I've been to your website and you talk about scorecards and assessments. Yeah. Can you expand a little bit on that in layman's terms?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, as it relates to process, you've got to follow a process, again, in this competitive market or any time for that matter, as it relates to recruiting. Having a defined and set up process, not only for us as a search firm, but our clients need to be doing that as well. So one of the things we always recommend at the beginning as a best practice is that you should always do a scorecard. You got to set yourself up for success. So if the client, a lot of times I understand that the urgency is we've got an empty territory, we just lost somebody, or we're ramping up and we need to get people on, the board's expecting us to deliver results. So there's this urgency on the client side. Many times what'll happen is we'll move way too fast, or I should say they will move way too fast and get out in front of it and have poor results. And so what I like to encourage our clients to do is to take a breath, slow it down. It's a hurry up, but slow down kind of an attitude. And which is simply just saying, okay, there's some things that we have to do on the front end to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success. And if you don't do those things, high probability you're going to have issues on the back end. And so, we've got all kinds of information. We could have a handout for you your audience here, Doug, that happy to share it with them. That points out some very specific things that they need to be doing. But, fundamental blocking and tackling, you got to go back to it sometimes. And especially when you're in this kind of a labor market.
Well, understood with that. And you talk about mistakes that can be made if you don't vet the candidates and clients on the same page. One thing is you want to do is, well, quite frankly, spend the money, the resources, and hire a mishire. You have a video blog post that I'm quite familiar with on that topic, but let's touch on that briefly. If you don't go through the checks and balances that you provide, that's one of the worst case scenarios is of hiring a mishire. How do you avoid a mishire?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it's an important part to say the organizations, again, looking at changing your mindset to viewing this as $1 million deal, is that what's the cost of not closing that deal? And, or to your point, closing the wrong deal, getting the wrong person on board. There's all kinds of data that's out there that it can range from 3 to 8 times salary that it can cost a company by having a wrong mishire. So again, I go back to that point of saying, take time, set yourself up for success, get your job descriptions done properly, understand the expectations, clarity on what the jobs are, looking at the job description, making sure you do a good job on a job description. We like to do something called a job design versus a job description. Job design talks about the 5 to 7 things that you want this person to accomplish in the next 18 months. Very different than a job description, which just pretty much says what you want the person to do in the job. Nobody ever gets fired for what I was supposed to do in the job. It's what I didn't get done in the job. So clarifying the expectations up front of whether it's, prospecting time or new clients, new logos, trade shows, whatever the deal may be, is outlining those expectations and getting clarity up front so the candidate knows exactly what to expect. But moreover, during the hiring selection process, that you should be focusing on those 5 to 8 things that you're trying to get done, because that's what's most important. And so you can look at the competencies and the behaviors behind what those things are that are required to get those things done. And that's what you should frankly be interviewing for, not a bunch of other fluffy kind of stuff that really doesn't matter.
I love that, because you want to keep it in perspective, but you want to make the right hire at the right time. Yeah. And there's a system of checks and balances. Yeah. Now, speaking of process, we've talked really a lot about from a client perspective on your job, but there's the other equation. You've got the candidate perspective. And again, I'm going to the website, John, and I'm just going to read 6 steps. And then I want to kind of evaluate a little bit more from that side, because your website is a great resource from both the candidate as well as the client you're trying to find the right candidate for. Yeah. So let's talk a little about the candidate search process. And you've outlined 6 steps. I'm the job seeker. I'm the candidate. I'm the sales executive looking for a new role. Yeah. Submission of the resume, profile completion. I want to elaborate on that. I want to come back to that. Candidate summary form and job match. Client interview preparation. You're already prepping the candidate or the client. You're also going to prep the client or the candidate. Yep. An offer letter and an onboarding follow-up, which I think a lot of organizations miss in anything in the sales process.
Big time.
Those 6 steps. Okay. Walk me through it. I'm looking for the right sales position.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm coming to you. I'm a sales executive. And walk me through that a little bit. How I'm being handled, how I'm being vetted, because I know it's just not grabbing resumes and sourcing people.
Want to give a little shout out to the folks over at LinkedIn. The founder of LinkedIn actually wrote a book, and let me grab it real quick. How's that? A great book that's called The Startup of You by Reid Hoffman and Ben Casnocha. Both are related into the LinkedIn family in the early days. And I advise all my candidates on the candidate side to read this book and to share it with family and friends, because it does an outstanding job of outlining your background or going through and talking about your career and approaching your career like an entrepreneur approaches building out a company. And so that's what, frankly, Reid Hoffman saw in his early days in his research of helping or, looking to set up LinkedIn, is that he was able to see this correlation, because obviously he being an extremely successful entrepreneur and then talking to a lot of these candidates, he was like, boy, that's very, very similar. So great book. We could do another video on that someday and talk to our audience more specific about that. But number one, I would advise all candidates to start with that. Pick up the book, The Startup of You. Take a read. It's about an 8-hour read, and probably get another 8 hours of exercises and activities you need to do to help build your plan for your career. Again, it's a book about career management, not about necessarily how to get a job. But what it does, it sets the candidate up for success. So now that candidate, after going through a very thorough process, now they can come in and they can submit their resume to us and their form of into our system, submit the candidate submission. and completing their profile, because now they're able to really well define and talk to us about what it is that they want, what it is that they're looking for. And it's much cleaner, quicker process. And again, it's setting the candidate up for success, because you also want to make sure that you're aligning yourself with the right companies, with the right niches. Where can I maximize my compensation? There's all kinds of things that you go through the book and it'll help you consider and think through. So great book to do. But when you walk through our process, it's going to allow capturing of all this information for the candidate, and also ask some hard questions of yourself. But again, setting yourself up for success, us being able to match you to an appropriate opportunity, and then from there, getting you involved into that discussion with the client. Then there's some things from our perspective that we help the candidates go through when it comes to offer time, acceptance, making change, considering what in today's market, we're seeing, Doug, more than ever, counter offers and other offers happening with candidates. And that's a huge change that has happened in today's market. So from a candidate perspective, you need to be thinking about that. If I'm going to make change, why do I need to make change, and what's most important? So, you're not going to waffle and go back and forth, because that doesn't look good. So when you've decided to make that change, you better know what it is that you're looking for, and go after it and get it. Because it's not about just making a job change. It's about making a career change. It's taking you down a path of success for yourself. And then always be thinking about, we do talk about it, and I think, Doug, I appreciate you bringing it up. One of the biggest things we see our clients don't do is have a really good onboarding and follow-up program that they have. So we try to do an onboarding and follow-up program with our candidates as best as we can. And that's just keeping in touch with them, making sure things are going well. Is there anything in the transition process we can assist with? And being clear on what the expectations are from the candidate side, right, as they transition into their new role and what's happening. So really important. And our team does a super job of managing that process. We get great comments all the time from our candidates saying, what a pleasure it's been to work with our professional recruiting team, and the things that they do makes a difference and is very different than what they experience in other firms. So I'm pleased that, we pay attention to what our candidates are looking for, and we will assist them as best we can. So
I love that. I love how you outline that 6-step process. Great resource for that book. We'll definitely put that out there as well. It's a process on both ends, but it's an evolving process. And, tips for attracting top sales talent today. We touched on the pandemic earlier, and how working harder and there's more candidates or less off the top of your head, besides the book and besides going through the process, what's transpired? And I'm talking from attracting top sales. So we're going back to the client perspective. What can they do? A sense of urgency, perhaps, in the recruiting, but what can they do to engage the top tier talent?
It's a great question. And in this market, it's more important than ever. Just like I go back to, it's a sales process, right? So just like companies expect their sales teams to be building these relationships with clients, their top 20 target list or whatever it may be, the hiring teams need to be doing the exact same thing. They need to be looking for and identifying top talent. They can use LinkedIn, obviously, because most sales, if they're not on LinkedIn, there's something funny going on. But so you can identify who this talent is and know whether it's competitors or other like markets, whatever it may be. Identify these individuals. Hiring managers should be blocking at least 5 to 6 hours every single week, whether they're in hire mode or not in hire mode, to be building relationship and building their pipeline. They're building a pipeline of candidates, getting to know who's out there. There's never a better time to do these interviews, and when it's more non-confrontational, right? And it's not, I'm trying to hire you, I'm just trying to meet you and get to know you, and building what we call a virtual bench, right? So have a bench of talent that you can call on, just like in baseball, we can call down and into the bullpen and a new pitcher comes in. Well, that's the spirit of it. It's like, okay, whether I'm going to be top grading my team, the ABCs, taking B players, C players, moving them out, moving them over, or A players, keeping them on board, but bringing in new people. Who do I call to bring into the game now, right? To help backfill those positions or for growth purposes. So
I love that analogy, because you've said it. I've seen in a blog post where you talked about having that bench that's on staff, recruiting that talent, because you're going to put people in play. It's about sales leadership, having the right people at the right time. and you've got to have a backup plan.
Again, I go back to it, Doug, view it as $1 million deal, view it as a sales process. And again, our sales leaders that are out there need to be looking at their process and saying, okay, where are my prospects at the top of it, right? The top of the funnel, if you want to use that vernacular, right? The top of the funnel, who are my suspects and prospects that I'm putting into my funnel that I can start working through that. And, you know, even from a search firm perspective, that if a client has done this before, that helps us engage and get going and launch the process quickly. Because now we've got a bucket of people that they've had conversation with, that they've got great lessons learned from, that they can share with us. So we can then, you know, we'll pick up the phone, we'll do the emails, we'll do the in-mails, we'll do the 6 contacts that it takes to get a hold of people these days. It's you know, a VP of sales or a CRO, CSO just doesn't have time to do, or even HR recruiting folks don't have time to do it in today's market. So we do that for them, and that helps us, you know, by them preparing in advance and having that information and knowledge already, helps execute and make the process go quicker and smoother, frankly.
Well, quite frankly, it makes it more efficient so they can hire the right people. They're hiring you for your expertise and expediting the expertise of what you bring to getting the right people on board. Yeah. A couple of things, and I want to change it up again with we talked about the candidate perspective, the client perspective. You know, the word personal brand. You mentioned the book with LinkedIn and building your brand online. You're obviously helping with client profiles. One of the key things that I'm strong with, and that's how we engage with, is the visual content. Yeah. You and I actually connected online because I had a visual CV, and I think this was 2010. I'm going to throw that number a while ago. You saw that. And then the component of video. And I want to tackle video because obviously I do a lot with video production. I'm going to look at it in 2 perspectives. My question's coming. So from a candidate perspective, visual resumes, any thoughts where we're progressing? And then from the interviewing perspective, you got companies like HireVue and different companies that are doing those video interviews. So let's tackle the video interview. And then maybe from a personal branding perspective, when it wraps into sales recruitment.
Yeah. Well, you know, what I have seen, what I believe and what I have seen are 2 different things. So what I believe is that the video element in hiring and interviewing from a candidate perspective or from a client perspective is brilliant. I mean, look at where, you know, since the pandemic, things have gone, right? With Zoom just taking over and just everybody doing Zoom calls and interviews and all that. And we've seen that calm down in the last, you know, 3-6 months, whatever it's been, as the pandemic has kind of softened a little bit. But the reality is what that has done is it leapfrogged, you know, 5-8 years by having that pandemic encourage this new process, this new way of doing things. And so I have always been a big believer in it, especially as it relates to sales, because this is how many people sell now. So what a better, you know, way to be able to present yourself and how you work and how you handle technology and everything else that comes along with it from a video perspective. And so I think it's an outstanding methodology, both from a candidate perspective and presenting yourself, whether it's a video resume or just notes. And then moreover, from a client perspective, we've also seen clients, Doug, some of our better clients have done some videos that are about their organization, about themselves, and about the opportunity. And we'll use that to share with the candidate. So video absolutely is becoming a bigger and bigger part of it. It's slow, but it's definitely climbing and gaining momentum. And especially as tools that have been developed, like StreamYard here and other products, Zoom, go down the list of all the different products that are available now to help communicate, you know, anywhere, whether it's on your phone, on a tablet, on your desktop, wherever, right? And so I think it's an outstanding thing, and I think we'll see more of it. If candidates are not willing to do that or jump on it, it's a yellow flag to our clients, because they're like, well, if they're uncomfortable presenting and getting themselves in front of a camera, in front of a client or a prospect or a suspect, whatever it may be, if they won't do that, then they're probably not right for us, because more and more of the sales process has gone to utilizing video or a video technology for doing live streaming like this.
Well, we're definitely living in the virtual world. And like you said, things obviously are speeding up fast because of the pandemic and embracing new technology through video. One of the things I liked what you said there, though, you talked about from a cultural perspective or a visual perspective, having those videos showcase a company's page, being able to understand their culture, what you're getting into on both ends of the perspective. We always think about personal branding from video, but I like how you just said from the standpoint of being able to do what I call social watching, doing your research,
Absolutely.
using video as a training tool, as an interview tool, as a personal branding tool, but really as a research tool. I mean, I definitely think that's where we're headed. You know, I'm all about keeping
Yeah.
it 100 with video in every part of the sales process,
Yeah.
training and recruitment as well.
Oh, I don't understand why more companies aren't utilizing it. Don't understand why, more candidates aren't utilizing it, especially against sales folks. But we'll see. I think it's changing quickly, and as the younger generations who are very tech savvy and utilizing, especially utilizing a cell phone, and I forget what the number is, but I think it's up over 70% or something like that now, that most of the candidates they engage via their cell phone. And so being able to do video or video interviewing, whatever, on a cell phone, you've got to have that kind of tool and accessibility to be successful in today's market. And again, as we talk about the younger generation, as they're moving up, this is just normal for them, right? So this is everyday business. So it's slowly getting there, and I think that the next 5 years we'll see quantum leaps of it coming into our process: recruiting, hiring, sales.
Well, as you said, everyday business, the norm. Is there anything else from a client perspective or a candidate perspective that you'd like to cover right now? Kind of like your parting shots, some quick takeaways.
I think, and I'll go back to, there's so many things, there really are, Doug. There's a boatload of things to share that help. But, as a general rule, and again, provide the document from our recruiting top talent, the three things that you need to do is to attract this top talent is, number one, is you got to have the mindset shift happening within the organization. It starts from the top, CEO down through the sales organization. The second thing is just setting yourself up for success. And there's a lot of steps that are within that. And again, the document we'll provide and the tips, we can go through all those things individually. But, pausing, slowing down the search to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success is really important. So that would be number two. The third thing is actually interview preparation. And I know that sounds basic, right? Interview preparation. But because of all the things I think that are happening in the marketplace, the urgency, the bandwidth not being as big within the organizations, not having as many resources to help out, that we've definitely seen slacking on interview preparation. And so, again, we have some tips shared in the document that your audience can grab anytime, and goes into a little bit more detail. But, setting yourself up for success by preparing also with the interview prior to taking it. Something as simple as show up early. Don't just show up to the video call or to the interview as you want. I mean, that sounds crazy, right? 30 minutes of preparation time before an interview. After you're done, 30 minutes of communication time internally to the organization. Just things like that just we don't see happening, and really messes up the selection process. Because, again, in today's market, candidates have choices. And as a result of having choices, you need to move quick, but you need to move with, process and with due diligence, making sure you're following the steps. But you got to move with some urgency in there and get things done. So if you're not doing that and you're stretching out and making your selection process longer, that's trouble. So do everything you can to compact it, not too crazy compact it without, sacrificing quality, but making sure you're covering all those steps. So anyway, I think those are the three things: mindset shift, two, setting yourself up for success, and three, doing a better job of preparing for your interviews.
I love those three steps: preparation for action. And if you're out there looking for the right sales talent, I encourage you to go over to the Sales Talent Group's website. We'll have that link. Check out the resources that John and his team have out there from both the candidate perspective, definitely the client perspective. Just a wealth of information. As you can tell, John's a process-driven guy, planning organization, because preparation and planning, if you don't, you're setting up for a mishire, or you're setting up for not getting the right opportunity at the right time. I want to thank John O'Brien. John, thank you so much for coming on, breaking it down in layman's terms. I know we can set the table for another future interview where we can go a little bit deeper on technology and some other things. I appreciate your time today, John.
Hey, Doug, a pleasure. Thanks for sharing me with your audience, and very happy to be on here today. Wish everybody 2022 great selling this year. Let's make it a great year.
Make it a great year, and definitely check out the Sales Talent Group, because they're sales professionals helping sales professionals with the right opportunities. I'm Doug, breaking it down in layman's terms, keeping it social, leveraging video.